planning laws, which I will be discussing. Okay, so disclaimer, this presentation is a non-comprehensive list and discussion of planning-related laws. As you know, there are really a lot of laws. By the way, can you see the PowerPoint? And also, am I audible enough?
Yes, sir. Kita po.
Okay. Sige. Actually, there are a lot of related planning laws, but we cannot explain it all together, especially we're given only 2 hours. And in that case, we cannot explain all the details. However, we just provide you the necessary guide so that you can review comprehensively this planning laws for the examination. No? So it focuses only on few key laws and provisions. And this should only be used as reference. No? And your review policies should be summarized review materials, which are not a substitute for self-study. In other words, you still have to consider self-study specifically for different planning laws. And also find, read, and understand the original documents. In other words, at least you have to read all throughout, no? Kahit na once lang yung lahat ng batas. And this is how you study. Yeah, actually, this is the first step. Find the law. Actually, you can find it from the internet or from your friend or from your previous files where you were able to actually get from your friends or even from your academic trainings or some other references. So, in other words, you find the law, get a copy of which, and then in its entirety at least once. No, this is what I was saying. Read the law at least once. But you need to understand, but not necessarily memorize everything. But as much as possible, you just understand it. This is optional also for major laws if you have time. Find the IRR as necessary for some major laws. Specifically, if you think that it's very important for you. But as I said, there are a lot of laws that you should really understand and read. And as you know, the law cannot be implemented without the IRR. But just for the sake of the ENP examination, you may just actually consider reading the entirety of the law itself. Because I don't think that the questions that will be asked in the ENP will be also coming from the IRR. Although for some, yeah, probably, but not all. And also, step 3 is to take note of the following. So we have the policy and principles being followed. Most of the law, actually, it starts with the House bill, unless it is an executive order wherein the president has the authority to declare or to enact such kind of executive order. But when we consider Republic Act, considering that we have this democratic form of government, it is actually being deliberated from the Congress or from the House of the Representatives, which is actually composed of the congressmen, and this is named, no, with a certain codes, say House bill, so HB, say numbers 4123, something like that, just to identify that that is the House bill, and that any politician or any lawyer or anybody who has that, who can lobby to have that law to be deliberated. I mean, it starts with the House bill, as I said, and then after that, it will be deliberated by the congressmen, and if it is considered okay, then it will be elevated. It will be elevated to the Senate, and it has another code, say SB, Senate bill, yeah, SB number so and so, and then it will be deliberated and agreed upon by the senators, and then if it's okay with them, it will be endorsed to the office of no other than the President of the Philippines, and it will be enacted as a Republic Act. That's why
Recording stopped.
That's why we have this RA, no?
Recording in progress.
And if you consider during the time of Marcos, no, it was actually in the terms of PD, so presidential decree. There was no any, say, two houses that should deliberate before it is enacted as a law. Okay, so in every law, whether it passes through the House bill or Senate bill, it actually has a lot of, say, principles. We call it governing principles. Do you remember when I discussed with you the RA 9184? It has what we call governing principles so that it will be approved. And of course, that is the intent of the law. That's why you need to consider policy and principles being followed, the provisions that affect, say, in this case, we are actually environment planners, some of us soon to become licensed environmental planners. So we have, this is actually relating to land use, zoning, space or distance requirements, natural resources, mandated plans and timeframes. And basically, some of these are actually related to the environmental environmental related policies. And regarding plans which are actually mandated to be made, and also the agency sometimes and the law actually considers some sort of a creation of a new agency. So maybe you can take note of that, and also some of the prohibitions. Okay, so those are the things that you need to check in considering the law. Okay, and is that the last one? Okay, and as I said, we have a lot of laws related to planning, but we'll just provide you this selected ones. We have, of course, the 1987 Constitution, which is actually the law of the land. And then consistent with that, there are other related laws, environment protection, natural resources laws, economic laws, social laws, infrastructure laws, and institutional laws. So let us consider this one at a time, but this is just a summary, no? Okay, regarding the 1987 Constitution, this is actually the supreme and fundamental law of the land. It says the principles that all other laws and policies are based on. So basically, all the other laws are supposed to be consistent with the 1987 Constitution. Okay, and in this case, we have these different articles or sections. And for Article 1, that's actually the national territory, archipelago, terrestrial, fluvial, aerial domains. That is actually considered in that concept, no? In that principles, the national territory, or in that description, shall I say. And then we have the Declaration of Principles and State Policies. Actually, in this Constitution, it is actually important to provide the promotion of general welfare, because it's really the main function of the government to provide general welfare of the people. And we have social justice, role of women, balanced ecology, rural development, agrarian reform, and autonomy of LGUs. And of course, we have the Bill of Rights, private property that cannot be taken without just compensation, and citizenship, qualifications to be considered a Filipino citizen, suffrage, the right to vote, legislative department composition, government appropriations, passing of laws, executive department, we have the presidency powers and responsibilities, and of course of some other executive functions. And we have the judicial department composition, powers and mechanisms, constitutional commissions. We only have three, commission based on the Philippine Constitution. We have Civil Service Commission, the Commission on Election, and the Commission on Audit. And it also considers the responsibilities. So the responsibilities therein for its commission. And actually, you will take note that why is it that there are only three commissions? There are a lot of commissions that we know. However, as provided in the 1987 Philippine Constitution, there are only three. So just take note of that. It may also come out in the exam. And of course, we have the local government. So the LG Code principles, accountability of public officers, national economy and patrimony, public domain classification can only be leased, conservation of forest lands, natural parks, right to private property, the function of NEDA. In that case, it's actually emphasized that for any corporation or any entity that should practice their profession in the Philippines, it must at least have 60% Filipino ownership or interest. We have the social justice and human rights, regulation of property, agrarian reform, fisher folk rights, urban and land reform, settlement, and women's working rights, no? And also education, science and technology, arts, culture, and sports. We have the right to select a college course, and also family as the foundation of the nation. Okay, with the Constitution, we have that management and development of land and natural resources, and this is consistent with Article 12, the national economy and patrimony. In other words, it's really important to note that all lands of the public domain, waters, mineral, coal, petroleum, and other mineral oils, all sources of potential energy, fisheries, forests, or timber, wildlife, flora and fauna, and other natural resources are owned by the state. There are some exemptions, however, no? With the exception of the agricultural lands, all other natural resources shall not be alienated. And the exploration, development, and utilization of natural resources shall be under the full control and supervision of the state. And lands of the public domain are classified into agricultural, forest or timber, mineral lands, and national parks. Alienable land of the public domain is limited to agricultural lands. And the Congress shall determine by law the specific limits of forest lands and national parks. Thereafter, they shall be conserved and may not be increased or diminished except by law. And this is actually the classification of land. I think you have known this during your um, academic subjects. So we have this A and D, alienable and disposable land. Basically, this is agricultural land. And we have the non-A and D. These are actually categorized as forest or timberland, mineral land, and national parks. And regarding the legal basis for land use planning, it is actually explicitly specified under Article 12, Section 6 of the 1987 Constitution, that the use of property bears a social function, and all economic agents shall constitute to the common good. So individuals and private groups, including corporations, cooperatives, and similar collective organizations, shall have the right to own, establish, and operate economic enterprises. That's why, in this case, we encourage the private sector to also be in partnership with the government in pursuit of having some sort of, even the infrastructure projects or in some other development initiatives. Subject to the duty of the state to promote distributive justice and to intervene when the common good so demands. And also consistent with Article 13, Section 1, the Congress shall give highest priority to the enactment of measures that protect and enhance the right of the people to human dignity, reduce social, economic, and political inequalities, and remove cultural iniquities by equitably diffusing wealth and political power for the common good. And to this end, the state shall regulate the acquisition, ownership, use, and disposition of property and its increment. So you have to take note of this. You should know this by heart, not necessarily to understand, not necessarily to memorize, shall I say. And pero during our time when we have our subjects in the masteral program, urban and regional planning at UP, we kept on memorizing this because in one of the subjects we actually asked to explain this, no? So in that case, but in this case, considering the environmental planner board examination, you just have to understand it because first and foremost, it's multiple choice, no? But you should know this by heart. Okay, so regarding related environment and natural resource laws, we have here RA 10587, PD 1152, RA 7586, and also RA 9147, PD 1151, RA 9003, RA 8749, RA 9275. So I'm just giving you some tips that as much as possible you can also memorize the numbers as much as possible, no? And not only that, but you should also consider the policy, the intent, the principles of each of the laws, and also what are the if there's a creation, as I said, no, in the previous slide. So you have to take note of this. not necessarily memorizing everything, but I just take note, most importantly, of you think has essential is as you think is essential for you to take note as environmental planner. Okay, so with the declaration of policy, as I said, diba, we have the policy, the declaration of policy, the governing principle. So with the RA 10587, this is actually the Environmental Planning Act of 2013. So this is actually very important to us because this is actually the practice of planning profession in the Philippines. So the state recognizes the importance of environmental planning and nation building and development. Hence, it shall develop and nurture competent, virtuous, productive, and well-rounded professional environmental planners whose standards of practice and service shall be excellent, world-class, and globally competitive. So the reason why we have this licensure examination. No? And when we define what is environmental planning, actually this is also known as urban and regional planning, city planning, town and country planning, and or even human settlements planning. So there are a lot of disciplines or courses that are actually introduced as part of the curriculum in different universities and colleges. So if you consider this, say, city planning, town and country planning, it also relates primarily to environmental planning. And this refers to multidisciplinary art and science of analyzing, specifying, clarifying, harmonizing, managing, and regulating the use and development of land and water resources in relation to their environs or environment for the development and sustainable communities and ecosystems. So the scope of practice of environmental planners, specific to environmental planning in the Philippines, we are actually we can engage actually in this professional services involving development framework, such as diba, we are actually hard sometimes with the preparation of the CLUP, but now I suggest we should call it CLWUP, this comprehensive land and water use plan, and zoning, legal issuances, planning for territory, site development for particular need, preparing the feasibility study. So most of us may be engaged in the feasibility studies. As I discussed last time, diba, it has different areas wherein it should be analyzed in order for a certain project to be considered feasible. And also the environmental assessments, institutional and legal systems. With respect to the academe, so we have the curriculum and syllabi development for licensure exams, even for the teaching in the universities and also review courses. So we are actually engaged, we can be engaged in these different activities. Just like for me, no, I'm also teaching in the BSU online teaching, and I actually teach in the masteral program, specifically on the masters in urban planning and design. So this is actually related. So this is one way for me to consider that I am actually making use of my planning profession, and also serving as resource person, lecturer, arbitrator. In this case, I can also say that I am a resource person, such as one like this, and also I used to be the GPPB recognized trainer, specifically on RA 9184. And that subject, as I said, or that topic is also one considerations as a part of one consideration, no, as part of one of the laws that we should know, specific to the profession of to the environmental planner profession. And also ensuring compliance with environmental laws, acquisition of regulatory permits. Okay, with this, actually there was the issuance of PD 1151. This was the time during the Marcos era, no? This was actually issued during that time. So this is what we call Philippine Environmental Policy. So the policy actually considers the continuing policy of the state to create conditions where man and nature can live in harmony, fulfill requirements of present and future generations. And also the goal is to recognize responsibility of each generation as guardians of the environment, preserving cultural historic heritage, national resource use while preserving environment. And also the right to a healthy environment, and it's everyone's duty and responsibility to contribute. And with respect to the environmental impact statements, it is actually stated in this, or as one of the provisions in this PD 115, the basis for the EIA system, the environmental impact assessment system, which is very useful right now, specifically if we have a proposed infrastructure project. Before it can be approved, either approval through the submission sa NEDA ICC, or even in the local level, wherein the provincial governor or even the city or municipal mayor can already approve it, or the oversight agency of its infrastructure sector can to be authorized to approve it. However, it needs some sort of evaluation with regard to the environmental impact assessment. Later in some of the laws, there is actually the consideration with respect to the ECP or ECA. There is something like critical project, no? So it's actually emphasized in one of the laws. Later, I will discuss. And also the legal basis for the environmental impact assessment, or EIA. Actually, it is the PD 1586, which is establishing an EIS system. This is actually pursuant to PD 1151, which we have just discussed. This is actually the Philippine Environmental Policy. And we have the Ministry of Human Settlements as lead agency during that time, no? During the time of Marcos era. Presidential proclamation of ECA and ECP, and also the Presidential Proclamation 2146 proclaiming environmentally critical projects. So this is actually consistent with PD 1586, considering that we need to check the ECP, the environmentally critical projects, or the environmentally critical areas. So there may be a project which is not critical, but in the area where it will be constructed, it's something like the area is critical. So the example of ECP is that these are heavy industries, resource extractive industries, fishery projects such as dikes and fish ponds, major infras such as dams, power plants, reclamation, roads and bridges, golf courses, and some other projects such as mining, no? Wherein it is considered environmentally critical projects because it may cause landslides and some other adverse effects to the environment. Now, we also have the environmentally critical areas such as national parks, reserves, tourist spots, habitats, archaeological, scientific interest, ancestral domain, frequently disastered, and also the critical slope. So in just considering layman's term for this, we consider that it is environmentally critical area if it is actually preserved. It is actually not alienable, no? And aside from that, the area is hazard prone, so frequently disastered, and also critical slopes, because we are not actually authorized to make use even for grazing or what if it is more than 50% slope. And even for the housing, although right now we are, but in the law, no, 18% slope is not actually allowed for housing purposes. And we have prime agricultural lands, aquifer recharge, water bodies, domestic use, protected fisheries, and also mangroves, coral reefs. So these are actually some of the considered ECP or ECA under proclamation number 2146, consistent with PD 1586. Okay, so in this case, to support as part of the IRR, actually the DNR, considering that it's the oversight agency with respect to the impact, no, to the environment. So in this case, the environmental impact assessment is being handled by the DNR. So the DNR is actually issuing what we call DNR administrative order, which is very similar to the implementing rules and regulation of certain law. So this is the IRR specific to that PD 1151, and it has actually and also the PD 1586 with respect to the EIS system, considering the ECP and the ECA. And this is DAO number 30 series of 2003. Okay, we have this PD 1152, which is the Philippine Environmental Code. You may imagine, why is it that it's different from the PD 1151? Actually, in the PD 1151, it was actually considering the policy with respect to the environment. So, I mean, to the general considerations with respect to the preservation of the environment. But this Philippine Environmental Code, PD 1152, it actually provides the policies and quality standards in different areas such as air, water, land, and natural resources management and conservation. So in this case, we have this air quality management, providing the standards for air quality, noise, and emissions. And we have the water quality management, clean up operations, and it actually considers the responsibility of polluter at its own expense. Sometimes we have what we call the other policy wherein we consider polluters pay, di ba? May mga ganun tayong policy. And also land use management. So it is actually the LGU actually has to formulate the national land use scheme. This is actually HSC is actually one of the units under consideration with those agencies concerned with the land use. And we have the natural resources management and conservation, policies on fisheries, wildlife, forestry and soils, minerals, energy and calamities, and also waste management and other provisions, miscellaneous provisions. We also have this RA 7586. This is actually the NIPAS. We normally call it NIPAS or NIPAS. This is a National Integrated Protected Areas System Act of 1992. And the declaration is to secure the existence of all native plants and animals through protective areas within the national park classification, encompassing outstanding remarkable areas and biological important lands, habitats, and ecosystems. And we have here in this law, there's a provision with respect to the different categories of land. So we have here the strict nature reserve. This is an area with an outstanding ecosystem, scientifically important species, maintained undisturbed for study, environmental monitoring, and generic resource. Natural park, relatively large area, maintained to protect inter and nationally significant areas of outstanding nature, scenery for scientific, educational, and recreational use. And we have natural monument, relatively large, relatively small area to preserve nationally significant natural features with special interest or unique characteristics. And we have the wildlife sanctuary area, which assures natural conditions to protect species, biotic communities, or physical features, and it may require human manipulation. We have protected land or seascapes, wherein there must be a harmonious interaction of man and land, opportunities for public enjoyment, recreation, and tourism within areas, normal lifestyle and economic activity. Resource reserve, this is extensive, isolated, and uninhabited area with natural resources protected pending development based on knowledge and planning. And the natural biotic area, this is set aside for societies in harmony with nature to modernize at their own pace, and other categories established by law, conventions, or international agreements. Section 8 provides the buffer zones, the definition of buffer zones, and this is actually established for its protected area outside boundaries for immediately adjacent it needs spatial development control to minimize harm to protected area. So the NIPAS administered by DNR creates protected areas and wildlife division under regional technical directors per region. And we have this protected acts, hunting, destroying, possession of species without permit, dumping or leaving exposed refuse, damaging objects of natural beauty or cultural interest, occupying land or building structures without permits. And it's also important to consider this revised IRR for this RA 7586 or NIPAS, and this is what we call DAO number 26, no, of 2008. So it just provides some sort of clear, clarifying definitions with respect to the different zones. So in this case, we have the strict protection zone. These natural areas with high biodiversity value may include habitats of certain species, degraded areas designated for restoration and subsequent protection. And also we have the multiple use zone. Consistent with management plan, the following may be allowed. So it may be some sort of mixed use. So settlement, at the same time, there may be a traditional and or sustainable land use, including agriculture, agroforestry, other income generating or livelihood activities, areas of high recreational tourism, educational or environmental awareness, existing installations of national interest or significance, such as development of renewable energy, telecommunication facilities, and electric power lines. Also, there is what we call the DAO 25. This is again considering the NIPAS IRR. This is the original one, no? The original IRR, wherein it provides this definition. So I will not much go into this definitions. You will just consider reviewing it, reading it, and understanding it. No, but these are some of the definitions that are actually necessary to be understood, specific to the NIPAS, no, for the protected areas. We have also this law, RA 9147. This is actually regarding Wildlife Resources Conservation and Protection Act of 2001. So the declaration is to conserve the country's wildlife and their habitats. Wildlife Resources Conservation and Protection Act, again, you can memorize RA 9147. So it has the collection of wildlife. It can be allowed if non-threatened species, by IPs for tradition through acceptable techniques. So by IPs, by indigenous people. And then possession of wildlife, not allowed unless entity has financial and technical capability. This is not obtained illegally, no? And introduction of exotic wildlife, not allowed in NIPAS critical habitats. And also the establishment of critical habitats. This is outside NIPAS areas with threatened species to be protected through acquisition, easements, and others, or similar others of lands if needed. And also there is a provision on illegal acts such as killing, destroying, inflicting injury to wildlife, dumping waste, occupying, mineral extraction, burning, logging, quarrying, and critical habitats. No, so it's really important to consider that there are some illegal acts. They should be prohibited. So sometimes you can consider that, oh, you are not anymore allowed. Yung mga fishing, di ba, may non-fishing season, something like that. So the government is providing primarily the LGU is providing some sort of policy that for certain month or months, there is what we call non-fishing month. So if you do it during the non-fishing month, then actually it's considered an illegal act. So actually one example is that in this case, the Cleopatra's Needle in Palawan declared critical habitat. So it is actually consistent with RA 9147 that defines a critical habitat as a portion of land outside the protected area that is characterized by presence of certain species, considering its endemicity and richness in the area, as well as in the presence of threats to its survival. So even if these are not within the protected area, there is still what we call a portion of land near, no, which is actually characterized, no, that is outside the protected area, something like very near or very at the boundary of that protected area, and that is characterized by the presence of threatened species. That is why in this case you can remember that there are also some animals and even plants, no, that are actually prohibited to be harvested. Actually, one time when I was still connected with NEDA, I was also unaware that ano ba yung parang there's a plant, no, something like um, it is actually prohibited, no. I was not able to bring it into in Metro Manila, considering that it is prohibited. So there are also some animals or some plants that are actually prohibited to be brought out of the area. In such case, there is some sort of policy. Even I think even not only the living things, sometimes even the stones, say from Boracay, sometimes it's prohibited. Actually, there's a regulation that you cannot get um, some sand, no, white sands from that area. So very similar to this. However, this one is for the wildlife resources conservation and protection, no? Basically for the bio for those with life, no, animal, plants and animals. I sorry. And we also have this RA 9003. I think this is you are very familiar with this. This is the Ecological Solid Waste Management Act, wherein it encourages resources conservation and recovery, targets for solid waste avoidance and volume reduction at source, and waste minimization. So this is actually regarding solid waste. Actually, the household we are actually mandated that from the source, from the household, we should actually consider this waste management. In other words, throwing it accordingly, segregating the bio waste from the non-bio waste. Okay, so this is actually defined as a solid waste. So household, commercial, agricultural, institutional, industrial, but for purposes of the act, not including hazardous, infectious waste or from mining. So even if we considered a lot of classifications of waste, in this case, this solid waste is not is excluding, no, it excludes the hazardous, infectious waste from mining or even from the hospitals. And in that case, that is actually covered by RA 6969. Okay, so with this ESWA, it is actually mandated that there must be a disposal area wherein the solid waste are indiscriminately thrown or disposed without due planning. That's why we have what we call the sanitary landfill. And we have this also controlled dump site. This is a disposal site at which solid waste is deposited in accordance with the minimum prescribed standards of site operation. And the sanitary landfill is a waste disposal site designed, constructed, operated, and maintained in a manner that exerts engineering control over significant potential environmental impacts arising from the development and operation of the facility. So it makes use of scientific strategy. And there's a creation of the National Solid Waste Management Commission. And also the powers and functions of this commission is actually to prepare the national SWM framework, and also it approves the local SWM plans. And also the role of LGUs and SWM is actually emphasized that it is actually responsible for the implementation of RA 9003 in their jurisdiction. Segregation and collection of solid waste at barangay for biodegradable, compostable, and reusable waste, collection of non-recyclable materials, responsibility of the municipality or city. And regarding there's also a creation of the board, a provincial SWM board. So at different levels of the LGU. So it has also the creation of city and municipal SWM board headed by the mayor, and also the local government of SWM plan. It has actually a duration of 10-year plan. So SW Solid Waste Management Plan 10-year plan reviewed yearly. Also, the SW diversion. So within 5 years of the act, actually, I don't know if this was actually monitored properly. Within 5 years of the act now, LGU shall divert 25% of solid waste through reuse, recycling, and composting. Not all of the LGUs right now have complied with this, the 25% of solid waste. And also LGU materials recovery facility. If you can go to some of the LGUs, you can actually see some sort of MRF, and this is actually one of the provisions required under RA 9003. In every barangay or cluster of barangays, there must be at least one MRF. And prohibition against open dumps. Converted to controlled dumps after 3 years, no controlled dumps after 5 years. But I think this we're not. Minsan kasi, although in this law we have these provisions, but sometimes the law ay sinasabi natin walang ngipin. But in any case, if there is a report regarding this, then it will be acted accordingly. And prohibited acts, littering, dumping in public areas, open burning of solid waste, so yung incineration, squatting in dumps and landfills, open dumping, establishment, operation of open dumps, establishments within 200 meters of dumps and landfills, construction and operation of landfills, waste disposal facility on any aquifer, groundwater reservoir and watershed. So sometimes hindi rin naiwasan, may makita tayo na even the solid waste, these are actually being dumped in the river. Kaya ang nangyayari, nagkakaroon ng is one of the causes of flooding. In any case, this is actually part of the provisions in the RA 9003. Okay, another is the Philippine Clean Air Act of 1999. So this is RA 8749. The state recognizes the primary responsibility of LGUs to deal with environmental problems, a principle that polluters must pay. So this is one of the consideration we're in. We can make use of that principle that polluter must pay. Actually, at the lower level, LGU level, it is not much implemented. But at the regional, when we say regional, it actually considers some sort of, say, region in Asian region, or even considering the globally, no? Those who are actually polluting must pay. So this is actually being applied for yung mga industrialized countries wherein they are actually producing a lot of greenhouse gases. So they must actually pay. However, I don't know if this is implemented already, but there's what we call agreements, no, international agreements that those who are actually contributing a lot of pollution specific to the greenhouse gases, then they must actually be penalized, or they must actually pay. And of course, focus primarily on pollution prevention rather than on control. We also have this Philippine Clean Air Act of 1999, wherein, still Clean Air Act. So this is also the mandate of DNR to see to it that this is being implemented. So we have the Air Quality Control Action Plan. We have the air sheds designated on basis of areas with similar climate meteorology and typology, which affect diffusion of pollutants, areas with common interest. Common action plan for its carried out by governing board. And we have the ambient air quality guideline values and standards. So sometimes you will imagine na, ano ba yung ppm na yun, no? But there's actually what we call a standard with regard to parts per million. I don't know the details of this, but it's important that in the specific area, the DNR, probably with coordination with, say, the OH or some other agencies, they must actually specify what is the acceptable ppm with respect to the pollution, no? So average time, minimum, etc. No? And also the ban on incineration for municipal, biomedical, and hazardous waste, it actually does not apply to SIGA. Yung SIGA, no? Kaya lang, I don't know, sometimes it is being implemented by other LGUs. Specifically ko yung pagsiga ay medyo malaki ang contribution sa pollution. Yun, kaya lang minsan these are not actually being monitored by the government. Kung ma-monitor man, it depends on the cases filed, no? Pero dapat nga may ngipin ang mga batas. So this is sometimes it considers also the traditional, agricultural, cultural, health, food preparation, and also the crematoria. It does not apply. So probably, yeah, because we have the cremation, no? So it does not apply in some other traditional agricultural. But in the implementation doon sa grassroots, it actually depends on how they implement it, no? Okay, next is pollution from smoking, prohibited inside a public building, enclosed public space, public vehicles or other transport, or outside the private residences, private place of work, or designated smoking areas. That's why if we recall, napapansin natin that there is a designated area for smoking. And ito yung example, but I do not want to explain this more. I myself, I do not know this. Now, this is actually yung sinasabi nating parts per million with regard to the air pollution. But for those of you who are actually engaged in some sort of having interest with respect to considering air pollution, considering this RA 8749, and if the nature of work or consultancy that you are actually having is in line with this, then I suggest that you must actually know these details so that you know what is part per million. Actually, some of you who would like to have thesis or in masteral thesis or even in the dissertation, if your line of topic is in line with this, then you should actually know what is the acceptable ppm, or what do you understand this I don't know this one, I don't know yung microgram, whatever. You should know it. But for now, I think it will not be asked naman siguro in the exam, in the environmental exam. But just know it. Just understand it, that there must be some sort of specific ppm with respect to the air pollution, which one is acceptable. And we also have the Philippine Clean Air Act. This is RA 9275. This is of 2004. So just to give you a tip right now, no, specific to the numbering of the laws, of the policies. As I said, first and foremost, diba, yung PD is actually during President Marcos, yung senior, no? Now we have the junior Marcos president, no? Yun yung mga PD, no? Presidential decree. And for the democratic form of government, we have the RA, Republic Act. And this is actually enacted upon the endorsement of the two houses, House Bill, Senate Bill, no? And there is also what we call EO, Executive Order. It is also a law, even for the democratic form of government. EO is also considered a law. However, the executive order, yung mga ibang creation nga ng agency, di ba? That is in the form of EO. However, if the new president will actually try to dissolve it or what, then it can easily be dissolved without the creation of which, no, can easily be dissolved without passing through the two houses, even if it is a Republic Act. I mean, if it's a law, it's different from Republic Act. I'm sorry. Republic Act, it should actually be enacted na dapat dumaan sa House Bill and Senate Bill. Pero yung EO, it can be a law, but pwede siyang i-dissolve ng another president kung ayaw niya yung ganung regulation or policy. Pwede niyang i-dissolve without passing through the house to houses. Okay, so at saka madaling tandaan, no? Tuloy-tuloy naman yung numbering. So if you want to memorize the numbers, malalaman nyo naman na pag mababa yung number ng RA, something like 4 na digits. Example, yung 7586. This is already an RA. Take note, 7586. So this NIPAS law, 1992 siya. Ngayon, as it increases yung number, kunyari 9003, that is actually 2002, no? So actually you can recheck na pag tumataas yung numbering, mas lalong nagiging parang pinaka more or less bago siya, just lately enacted. So if you consider now, karamihan ng mga batas na ini-enact ng 2010 or 2012, something like that, di ba? Mapapansin nyo, 10121. Yung 10121 is actually in 2019. I don't know. I think this is, I forgot, something like between 2010 to 2012. So mapapansin nyo na ganun ang numbering. So right now, di ba meron tayong RA 10844. This is the creation ng DICT, separating it from the Department of Transportation. And also we have RA 11201. This is yung DSUD, the Department of Housing and Shelter, Urban Development. Yeah, Urban Development. The Department of tama ba? Well, later on, I cannot know. So, basta DSUD siya. This is actually in 2019, merging the HADC and the HEDORB. And also we have the RA 10625. This is the creation ng PSA, merging the NSO and the NSCB. This is actually in 2013, I think, no? 2013, no? But something like that. I don't think you need to memorize naman the years. But as you consider yung the way you memorize the different RA numbers, pwede nyong tingnan na tumataas yung number pag medyo bago, no? Something like that. So okay, we're now in RA 92, discussing RA 9275. This is the Philippine Clean Air Act. This is in 2004. So the declaration is that the national program that recognizes water quality management issues that cannot be separated from ecological protection, water supply, public health, and quality of life. And also to provide a comprehensive management program for water pollution, focusing on pollution prevention. Okay, so in this case, we also have the water quality management area, wherein the DNR with the National Water Resources Board and WRB shall designate areas using physiographic units such as river basins, watersheds, water resources regions, and management areas governed by governing boards. So in this case, specific to the air and water, no, we have airsheds, we have watersheds. So in this case, in planning, no, in planning some sort of infrastructure, no, related to air or related to water, since we have the airsheds and we have the watersheds, then there must be some sort of coordination with the concerned LGU, because as we know, it's not actually isolated that only one LGU will have this. LGU will only have this watershed, no. Watershed may actually be for 2 or more different LGUs, but nearby LGUs. Okay, so for the National Sewerage and Septage Management Program, its LGU shall appropriate necessary land for sewage septage treatment facilities. Also, domestic sewage collection, treatment, and disposal, also the cleanup operation. So these are actually part of the provisions in RA 9275 or the Philippine Clean Air Act. In this case, the creation is that the lead agency is the DNR, wherein the DNR shall prepare an integrated water quality management framework. This is a 10-year for a 10-year period, and also the role of LGUs and also prohibited acts. And for the environment and natural resource laws, we have this PD 1067. This is actually the water code of the Philippines. So you may consider na parang bakit may Philippine Clean Water Act? Why is it different from the water code of the Philippines? So yung water code of the Philippines is actually providing the necessary categories with respect to the use of water. Samantalang yung Philippine Clear Water Act, it is more on how you consider na dapat yung paggamit ng water is at saka yung water na gagamitin is not that polluted. So we actually consider that the water that we have, including the water resources, yung mga sources natin ng water must be clean. So similarly for RA 8749, dapat yung air naman ay mapangalagaan nating malinis. So that is how it differs. So now for the PD 1067, this is actually the water code of the Philippines. And all waters belong to the state. It may allow use for development of waters through concession, utilization, exploitation, development, and conservation under control, regulation of Natural Water Resources Council. And in the case landowner where water is found can use water for domestic purposes. So there's a clarification as to who can make use of water, no? Who can own the water. So in this case, landowner where water is found can use water for domestic purposes without permit. No water appropriation without water permit. Water right is a privilege granted by the government. Banks and shores of rivers, lakes, and seas shall have an easement. So in that case, there's also the provision that we must provide a sort of easement. And in case of urban areas, the easement is 2 meter from the shoreline, no? And also for the agricultural areas, 20 meters. For forest areas, 40 meters. So I think you should understand this easement. It's I think it may also come out with in the exam, because it's also important. We can easily memorize it. We can easily apply it. No? Forest areas, 40 meters. Agricultural areas, 20 meters. And urban areas, 3 meters. That's why if you have rivers, no? Diba, in Marikina, you can actually have this Marikina River. So if you want to make use of a portion of the area, dapat yung easement ay at least 3 meters. You should not build any structure there. And also, government constructed flood control structures in declared flood control areas may have easements as wide as needed. So the list actually is 3 meters, no? But if you think it is necessary to make it 4 or 5, then the LGU may actually consider such kind of policy na pwedeng 5 meters, especially if it's being flooded, yung pag tumataas yung water during rainy season. And also we have any watershed land adjacent to surface water can be declared as protected area by the DNR. Okay, we have this Philippine Fisheries Code of 1998, so RA 8550. The policy is that it considers food security and development, management and conservation, preservation of fishery resources, and limit access of fishery resources to Filipinos, protect the rights of fisher folk, preferential use of municipal waters by local fishers. And in this code, we actually define that the municipal water, the marine waters must be up to 15 kilometers from the coastline. So this is actually considered municipal water. The water bodies within the municipality but outside NIPAS areas, public forest, timberlands, forest reserves, or fishery reserves, the marine waters up to 15 kilometers from the shoreline. So in other words, this is the definition of Manila of municipal waters. Waters outside the NIPAS areas. And also the use of Philippine waters exclusively for Filipinos. Jurisdiction of LGUs, municipality, city over municipal waters may enact ordinances for management and protection of aquatic resources. The use of municipal waters, small and commercial fishing vessels may be authorized through ordinance to operate within the 10.1 to 15 kilometer area from shoreline. And disposition of public lands for fishery purposes, tidal waves, mangroves, marshes, for shorelands and ponds suitable for fishery operations shall not be the alienable and disposable. Okay, Section 51, not more than 10% of surface area of lakes and rivers allotted for fish cages and pens. Okay, there's a PD 705. This is regarding Forestry Reform Code of the Philippines. This is considering that public forests are the unclassified public domain. The permanent forests or forest reserves are classified for forest purposes. Alienable and disposable lands classified unneeded for forest. And no public domain 18% in slope or over shall be classified as A and D, alienable and disposable. So this is one of the things that I was telling you a while ago, wherein there are some limitations specific to the yung kung ang slope ay 18%, then it cannot be classified as alienable and disposable. And no forest land 50% in slope or over can be classified as grazing land. So if it's 50% in slope, it's not actually allowed for us to use it as grazing land. Hindi pwedeng pag-ano ng mga hayop, no? And also areas needed for forest purposes that cannot be also that's not alienable and disposable. Areas less than 250 hectares far from any A and D land, and isolated forest patches at least 5 hectares with. So these are actually important that you should also take note, no? The areas, so 250 areas far from any alienable and disposable land. And also isolated forest patches at least 5 hectares with rocky terrain or which protect a spring, and also reforested areas, forest concession areas supporting wood processing plants, reed stops, plateaus. Ayun, this is also important, 20-meter land strips along high water line of rivers, streams at least 5-meter wide. So those are actually the consideration with respect to the areas needed for forest purposes. Okay, so I'll not much discuss on this. We'll be giving you naman this PowerPoint. We are just providing you some necessary tips on how you should understand the different laws. Okay, with regard to Philippine Mining Act of 1995, this is RA 7942, and all mineral resources belong to state. This is the responsibility of the state to promote rational exploitation. And regarding mineral reservations, the president may declare areas such as when the national interest requires. And small-scale mining cooperatives given preferential preferential rights for small-scale mining agreements for a maximum of 25% area of reservation. No mining in ancestral lands without prior consent of the indigenous people. Also, closed areas, old growth or virgin forests, proclaim watershed forest reserves, wilderness areas, mangrove forests, most forest national parks, provincial municipal forests, parks, green belts, game refuges, and bird sanctuaries as defined by law in an areas explicitly prohibited under the NIPAS. So those are considered closed areas. In other words, it cannot be used for mining. Okay, now we have the economic laws. Wait, I'm given up to 3:30. Something like sige. So we have the economic laws. We have RA 8435. This is actually the AFMA, the Agriculture and Fisheries Modernization Act. So the the intent of this law is actually on poverty alleviation and social equity, food security, global competitiveness, people empowerment, rational use of resources, sustainable development, protection from unfair competition. Okay, so in this case, I think this law can still be revisited, no, considering that, di ba, ang focus ni Bongbong Marcos is actually more on agricultural sector. No, so in this case, this may be probably probably us in the exam, considering that the main intent is for poverty alleviation and social equity, food security. Okay, so we have this network of protected areas for agricultural and agri-industrial development, wherein it covers all irrigated areas. So these are actually some of the areas wherein this can be considered as part of this NAPAD, no? NPAD. So one important thing is to notice that highlands are areas located at an elevation of 500 meters above and have the potential for growing semi-temperature and high-value crops. And we also have this SAF-DC, no? Strategic Agriculture and Fisheries Development Zones. These are areas within the network ng yung NPAD identified for production, processing, marketing to develop agricultural products and fisheries. It should not be more than 5% of all irrigated lands, irrigable lands, lands with existing potential for growing high-value crops located with SAF-DC may be converted. So not more than 5% may be converted. And also incorporate SAF-DC and CLUP and then zoning ordinance. I'll skip some, no? Okay, now we also have the RA 7916. This is the Special Economic Zone Act of 1995. This is to promote preferential use of Filipino labor, domestic materials, and local goods. This is to accelerate industrial, economic, social development to provide jobs and thereby improve level and quality of living. So that's why, di ba, we have what we call EPSA, the economic yung processing zone, wherein they are exempted with specific taxes, exempted in paying the specific taxes. So we have here the some of the definitions. The special economic zone, potential highly developed areas with agro-industrial, tourist, recreational, commercial, banking, investment, finance centers. It may have all of the following. So pwedeng industrial state, land subdivided, no? Export processing zone, specialized industrial estate, physically or administratively outside customs territory, oriented to export production. We have free trade zone, isolated policy area, adjacent to port of entry where goods are manipulated without import duty. So sometimes there are some regulations consistent with the tax exemption. And we have the Philippine Economic Zone Authority, the EPZA, or the PEZA. The Export Processing Zone Authority evolves into the PEZA. And we have exception from national or local taxes. No taxes except for the RPT. RPT is the real property tax for businesses. 5% of gross income of firms within goes to 3% national government and 2% to LGU. And we have also RA 9593, the Tourism Act. So this actually, this considers the creation of TIESA. The purpose of this law, or the intent, is that tourism is an indispensable element of national economy. That's why we support tourism, an industry of national interest and importance. Conserve, protect heritage, national identity and sense of unity, favorable image of the Philippines in international community. So this is actually part, as I said, the creation of the Philippine Tourism Authority. Actually, this is reorganized to TIESA, Tourism Infrastructure and Enterprise Authority. And LGUs should prepare local tourism development plans. It also specified areas where it can be used as a tourism enterprise zone. So the area is one contiguous territory, etc., etc. No? So I'll not much deal on this, but just provide you some necessary tips and guidelines. Social and housing laws. So we have here the RA 8371, RA 7279, BP 220, and PD 957. Actually, wait. Actually, with this related infrastructure, related social laws, this is actually providing some recognition and promotion of the rights of the indigenous people. No, and in this case, we have what we call the indigenous cultural communities and also indigenous people. So it recognizes and promotes rights of the ICC and IP. We have here the different definition of ancestral domains, all areas belonging to IPs comprising lands, inland waters, coastal areas, natural resources, including ancestral lands, worship areas, and also ancestral lands is defined as land occupied, possessed by IPs, including residential farm or tree lots, private forests. And also we have what we call the certificate of ancestral domain, the land title. So recognizing the rights for the use of these ancestral domains and ancestral lands. Okay, so exemption from taxes. So except for the RPT, special levies, exaction, except in case of large scale agriculture, commercial forest, residential privately titled, exactions are used for development of domains. So these are actually exempted from taxes. And we also have RA 7279. This is the Urban Development and Housing Act. Just for your information, you may also read this and understand, but this is already amended by recently by RA 11201, which is actually the merging, the creation of the, ito ngayon ang nalito ako, no? This is actually the creation of DSUD, no? Let me just call it DSUD, Department of Human Settlement and Urban Development. Oh, nakuha ko rin. No? Department of Human Settlement and Urban Development. This is already amended. But for your information, this is actually RA 7279, providing comprehensive and continuing urban development and housing program with the private sector. Ayan na pala. So this is actually amended by RA 10884, considering 15% subdivision and 5% condominium. So socialized housing tax, LGUs may impose a 0.5% of real property tax on assessed value of all lands in urban areas in excess of 50,000. And it also considers the eviction and demolition of ISFs. It may be allowed if when persons or entities occupy danger areas such as esteros, no? And when government infrastructure projects with available funding are about to be implemented, and when there is a court order for eviction and demolition. That's why this is specifically considering first and foremost yung areas na medyo critical, di ba? We actually consider yung before you build a structure, diba, yung environmentally critical areas. So pag ganon, to consider the general welfare, dapat yung mga informal settlers ay i-evict or i-demolish, no? Accordingly. Okay, so we have also the BP 220. This is the economic and socialized housing in rural and urban areas. This is actually has something to consider with respect to PD 957. This is the subdivision and condominium buyers protective degree. And also PD 1216 defining open space. So for the socialized and economic and socialized housing, there's actually some sort of guideline specific to the required square meter, the area, no? So for single detached, 72 square meter. For duplex single attached, 54. this is for the economic. For the socialized, we have 64. So when we say socialized, this is actually yung medyo mura-mura, no? When we say economic, it's a little bit expensive, but this is to provide to provide housing, no, to the Filipino people. So ito yung mga category or classification with respect to the area, minimum lot area, and also so open market. And also there are some specific provisions such as the subdivision projects 1 hectare or more shall reserve 30% of gross area for open space. Diba? This is PD 1216, defining the open space. Kaya if there's a developer, you should actually consider that 30% of the total area ng subdivision ay dapat open space siya. What do we mean by open space? Diba? Meron siyang playgrounds, recreational, yung mga common use. So in this case, 9% of gross area for high density socialized housing must be used for parks, playgrounds, recreational use. Okay, so something like, no? And also we have the infrastructure laws. I discussed RA 6957, diba? It is amended by RA 7718, so I'll not be discussing it anymore. This is actually the BOT law. Yan, di ko na siya di-discuss. I'll skip it. And regarding PD 856, this is Code on Sanitation of the Philippines. This is actually providing protective measures for drinking water sources, no washing or bathing within 25 meters of water sources, no wells constructed within 25 meters of pollution sources. So you may also consider noting, you should take note of this distances, 25 meters from water sources. There should be no washing and bathing, no wells constructed, 25 meters of pollution sources, nothing radioactive with 25 meter water sources unless shielded. No public water supply system to allow physical connection between its distribution system and that of any other water supply. And ito pa nga, di ba, burial. So pag may burial grounds, dapat hindi kayo pwedeng magkaroon ng water supplies or water sources 50 meters from that burial grounds. and walang pwedeng itayong residential or dwelling dwelling house 25 meter from the burial grounds. Kaya lang nasusunod ba ito? Anyway, just to understand this law, you should actually take note that 25 meters from the burial grounds, you cannot actually construct a house. And also burial requirements, graves at least 1.5 meter deep. So that's necessary, no? It's also a part of the provisions of the law. And regarding institutional laws, we have EO 72, the responsibilities of LGUs in land use planning and approval of development plans. So actually this originates, no, yung tinatawag nating formulation ng CLUP, which is actually being provided for in RA 7160. So the cities and municipalities shall continue to prepare or update their CLUPs, and then plan review and approval. The CLUPs of component cities and municipalities are reviewed and approved by the province. So ang mag-a-approve ng CLUP ng cities municipalities ay province, kung sino nakakasakop na province, and also CLUPs, provinces, highly urbanized cities, and independent component cities shall be reviewed and ratified by the ACLURB. But right now, this function is in the DSUD already, no? Well, there's actually a unit to do this function, yung i-review and ratify by certain unit in DSUD, primarily the function of HLURB before, to ensure compliance with national standards and guidelines. Also, CLUPs of cities and municipalities of Metropolitan Manila shall be reviewed by the again by DSUD, no, to ensure compliance and with national standards and guidelines. So this is the organization of the DSUD. No, actually this is HLURB, but you should take note, probably check with the internet the organizational chart of the DSUD right now, where these functions, itong units na to ay nakalagay, no? Pero right now ito ang with this PDH with this EO 72 and 71, no? Ganito yung organization. Okay, we have here RA 7160. This is very important because this is the local government code of 1991, and I suggest you should take note of these important provisions, lalo na nakalagay dito, no? But as we said, more or less you should read the law. Pero kung wala ng panahon kasi napakakapal nito, no? You should just take note of the necessary provisions which are very much related to environmental or urban planning, human settlements planning, etc. No, so first and foremost, we have to consider the general welfare, and then the power to generate and apply resources, taxes, fees for development, eminent domain, reclassification of lands. So a city or municipality through an ordinance can authorize reclassification of agricultural lands. So in this case, we can actually consider the conversion of agricultural land based on, of course, the CLUP, no? But it is actually provided for in the CLUP na ginagawa ng corresponding LGU. And land ceases to be economically feasible and sound for agri purposes. Land shall have substantially greater economic value for residential. So sabi nga natin, yung use ng land is kailangan best and ano bang tawag nun? Highest and best use. Something like that, no? Pero it should also be consistent with the zoning ordinance. Okay, so this is limited to the following percentages: 15% highly urbanized and independent component cities. Yun yung pwedeng ma-reclassify, so pwede ma-convert, no? And then for component cities, 10%, and then for the 4th class and 6th class municipalities, 5% lang. And then agri-lands under CARP or CARL, this is actually RA 6657. Well, you should just take note of this one. And then LGU shall prepare CLUPs enacted through zoning ordinance. For the LDCs, LGU shall have a comprehensive multi-sectoral development plan initiated by its development council, by the local development council, approved by the Sanggunian. And the composition functions of local development council: executive committee, we have the sectoral or functional committee. So you just take note of this relation of LDC to the Sanggunian and the regional development council, the policies, programs, projects. So yun, no? And we have this barangay development council, which is actually headed by the punong barangay, the members of the Sanggunian barangay, congressmen, representative, NGOs representatives. At least 1/4 of the council must be represented by at least 25% by the NGO representative. The function is to mobilize people's participation in local development functions, prepare barangay development plans, monitor and evaluate implementation of national and local programs and projects. Okay, so in that case, there's an EXICOM and there's also a secretariat. Appeal, power to create sources of revenue. So pwedeng levy taxes, fees, and charges, local taxing authority exercised by Sanggunian through an ordinance. The power to levy, the rates of levy, additional levy on real property for the special education fund. So there's actually 1%, no? Additional 1% on assessed value to exclusively accrue for the special education plan. Also the taxes that is actually imposed with respect to the idle lands. It's covering agricultural lands more than 1 hectare, 1/2 of which remain uncultivated. So pag more than 1 hectare na mayroon kang 1/2% na hindi naging idle o hindi na cultivate and improve by owner. So that is actually considered idle land. Permanent or perennial crops with at least 50 trees per hectare, grazing land not idle. And other lands in city or municipality more than 1,000 square meter, 1/2 of which remain unutilized. So that's considered idle land. Kaya kung nakikita niyo yung mga nasa urban area wherein meron kang at least 1,000 square meter pero ang kalahati noon ay hindi na-improve o hindi nagagamit, then that is also considered idle. And this is actually the distribution of the proceeds from the RPT, no, basic RPT, not including yung special education plan fund or idle land. So for province, 35%, 40% for municipality where property is located, and 25% for the barangay where property is located. So this is the distribution. Parang ito yung lumalabas na IRA, no? 35% of sa province. In that province, napupunta yung 40% to the municipality, and then out of the 40% napupunta naman sa 25% sa barangay. And how do we define cities, no? 70% with respect, I think this with respect to population. 15% all barangays distributed equally, 15% barangay. This is for the cities. That one is for the province. And this 15% barangay where property is located. And with respect to municipality, 35% for Metro Manila, 35% for the municipality where property is located. And also barangays, 15%, 15%, no? So that is actually with regard to the RPT. So allotment of IRA, 40% of collections from the third fiscal year preceding current year. So 60% goes to the government, national government, and 40% goes to the LGU. So that's the allocation. So ito allocation of local government units, 23%. I think you should take note of this. No? 23% for the provinces, 23% cities, 34% municipalities, and for the barangays, 20%. So it is based on, say, the population, 50%. This basically for the barangay and municipality. We have land area, 25%, equal sharing, 25%. So share of each barangay with population not less than 100 inhabitants shall not be less than 80,000 per annum, chargeable against the 20% share of the barangay from the IRA. So in other words, regardless of kung anong computation na ito, dapat yung barangay with of not less than 100 inhabitants shall have 80,000, no, per annum, chargeable against the 20% share of the barangay from the IRA, and the balance to be allocated according to the following formula. So we have population 60%, parang 60-40, no? Population 60% and equal sharing 40%. And the LGU shall appropriate no less than 20% of the IRA for the local development projects. I'll not much discuss on this. Okay, for the highly urbanized cities, it's actually classified na mayroon at least yung 200,000 minimum population and at least 50 million latest annual income, and voters of HUC don't vote for provincial official. Ito hindi ko masyado alam to. Voters of highly urbanized cities don't vote for provincial officials. In other words, among the population, the 200,000, yung voters doon ay hindi bumuboto sa provincial officials. In other words, that is considered yung local government unit that is actually considered highly urbanized cities. Okay, duty to declare highly urbanized status, it is actually the president. It is actually declared by the president within 30 calendar days of meeting minimum requirements. Simplified LGU hierarchy chart. Ayun, so we have actually for the provinces, we have component cities, and we also have municipalities. And under municipalities, we have here the barangays. Now, we have what we call HUCs, highly urbanized and independent component cities. So in this case, one example is itong mga nasa Metro Manila cities, no? HUCs yun. And we also have autonomous regions. So Planning and Development Coordinator, yung function nun. And now we have Climate Change Act. This is RA 9729. This is the CCA of 2009. So actually, the principle is to consider that the state has to adopt the principle of protecting the climate system for the benefit of humankind on the basis of climate justice or common but differentiated responsibilities and the precautionary principle to guide decision making. specific to climate change. So there's a creation also of the Climate Change Council ba yun? Commission. Okay, and also we have the RA 10121. This is actually the Disaster Risk Reduction and Management Act of 2010. Ayan, so the principle is to incorporate the concepts and principles of the DRRM in the national, local poverty reduction strategies, policies, plans, and programs. So it has actually four components or four categories wherein there are some designations with respect to the different shall I call this stages, no? So for the disaster preparedness, it is actually the DILG who is the vice chair, and then the disaster response is the DSWD, disaster prevention and mitigation, the DOST, and disaster for recovery and rehabilitation, it's NEDA. So itong four areas na to na dapat gampanan with respect to the disaster risk reduction and management ay naka-allocate to the different agencies. And there's also the creation of the DRRMC, no? At the national level, we have the National Disaster Risk Reduction and Management Council. And this is actually headed by the ODC, no? ODC, Office of the Civil Defense. Ayan, ODC, no? Which should actually formulate the national DRRM plan. And also there are levels, so levels at the regional and also level at the municipality or city, and even at the level of barangay. So that's the creation of this councils and offices. I will not discuss this. This is RA 9184. I've discussed that already. And tips for studying for the board exam: review, make your own. Ideally, it would make you understand the material first before you compress it into notes, and review your reviewer regularly. Don't be stressed. But before that, I would like to also provide you this necessary information. Hindi, wag muna. I would like to have question and answer, a very short quiz related to our discussion. So let me share the Q&A. Okay, Q&A, no? Can you see it?
Yes, sir. Kita po.
Kaya lang i-PowerPoint ko. Okay, what is this law that provides the guidelines on environmental planning in the Philippines? What RA is that?
Ayun, sir. Answers are coming in from the chat box. 10-5, RA 10587 po.
Very good. So that's correct.
Galing-galing.
RA 10587. So may mga questions minsan na gano'n, no? Pero I'm not saying na i-memorize nyo lang lagi yung number ng batas. Hindi. You should also understand